Hi, I'm Will the Gamer, and today I want to talk about player housing. So first things first, how do you get a house? Only nobles can own land, which means if you're a peasant, you can't own anything. I'm not going to talk about how to become a noble in this video because this is going to center around player housing, but let's say you've become a noble, then you can buy your land. Now you might be asking to yourself, well, where do I buy this land? And that would be a fantastic question. Large swaths of land will be dedicated to player housing. In these areas will be rows of land sectioned out into squares that you will be able to purchase for yourself. These pre-sectioned squares of land will come in 4 different sizes: small, medium, large, and extra large. They will also be split into 2 different types. You see, the plots of land you can buy are split between farms and player houses, and you have to choose which one you would like because you can only have 1 plot of land. So where are you going to find these plots of land? While towns that are fully upgraded are going to have lots of spaces for land, most of the land you're going to be able to purchase will be in a city. All the cities in the game are laid out in a very similar fashion. Towards the center of the city is going to be where most of the nobility lives, where the rich people live. It is in these areas you're going to find the large plots of land, and these plots of land will only be able to be used for housing. These plots of land are going to be highly sought after, and thus their weekly upkeep will be very high. This is, however, one of the few areas where you will be able to build mansions. Past the inner court of the nobility is going to be the government section. This is where you're going to find the military academy and the various schools of magic. It is here where you'll find most of the medium-sized housing. Unlike in the noble sectors, the medium-sized housing is more cramped and pushed together. There will also be far more medium plots available than there will be large plots. Medium plots are going to be where you find your standard picket fence houses. Preceding this area, you're going to find the market district. The opulence of these market districts varies from region to region. In one city, it might be a densely packed slum. In others, it might be where that kingdom shows its opulence. Thus, the prices of the small lots in them vary greatly from city to city. The region will also determine which kinds of houses are available to be built, as you are limited to the theme of that specific region. That being said, the small plots of land are going to be densely packed together. The houses you're going to be able to build on small plots of land are going to look like apartments mostly. They'll all be packed together through various points within the market district on the outer edge of the city. These will be the smallest houses available to buy, but also the most numerous. Okay, now I've pretty much talked about everything that's going to be inside of a city. Now let's talk about what's going to be outside of those walls. The immediate area around a city is always going to be populated by large numbers of farms. Farms are the only extra large plots of land. Though similarly to the small plots of land, they're all packed tightly together. Hundreds of farms will surround any city in order to feed its populace. They will also need extra farms in order to feed the surrounding castles and fortresses. Thus, major settlements are always surrounded by large numbers of farms. This also means large numbers of caravans are going to be coming and going from these areas. Farms will also be the majority of the land players own. So now let's talk about what you can do with the land that you own. Let's say you bought a plot of land for a house. The first thing that will happen is you will be given options for blueprints for a house that you would like to build. These choices will be themed around whatever city your house is being built in. If you're building your house in a white marble city, expect your house to be made out of white marble. If you're building your house in a more primitive city where they use, let's say, mud and sticks, your house is probably going to look like mud and sticks. Hopefully when all is said and done, you'll be able to have 10 or so different options to choose from. Now that you've selected the blueprint for the house that you want to build, you're going to have to gather the resources in order to build it. You can either buy these resources or gather them, but once you're all said and done, you'll have all the resources in order to build your house. Once you have the resources, workers will come and build your house over a set period of time. Once the house is fully built, you can fill it with all the furniture you've gathered on your journey or the ones that you've built as a carpenter. At this point, you can also choose to upgrade your house, adding multiple stories, different decks, different kinds of front ends, different kind of back ends, all kinds of different customization options for every house. And of course, the bigger your house, the more options you're going to have. The larger houses even having options such as grand staircases coming up to the front door, hedge mazes in the backyard, or even pools. So now you might ask, beyond just having one, what's the point of having a house? Well, they can actually serve multiple functions. Teleportation of any kind is very limited in my game, thus, a house adds another place you can teleport to, which is very valuable. On top of that, the more elegant your house, the higher your prestige rating. Your prestige ranking helps you climb the ranks of the nobility. However, I'll go over the nobility more in a different episode. Houses can also be used for various crafting professions, allowing you to build rooms that cover all the basic necessities of whatever profession you might be trying to level. You can also build storage rooms to vastly improve the amount of items you can store. This is important because your bank's storage space is shared by all your characters. And if you've ever played an MMO, you're going to know how quickly this fills up. Adding a storage room will vastly increase the amount of storage space that a player will have. It also has a mailbox, which makes it easier to get the mail, which is fairly important in my game. The larger houses will even have basements which you can use to create practice rooms which will allow you to practice boss fights. These rooms will be critical to the high-level guilds that are trying to overcome complicated boss fights. Now, I'm sure there's a few things I'm missing, but I want to move on to farms. Every farm is on an extra large plot of land. Similarly to how you create a house, you'll be creating different types of farms. And also similarly to the way you select your house, it'll also be themed around the area that you're in. If you try and grow your corn in a marsh, it's not going to work very well. Thus, like the housing, specific types of farms are specific to certain regions. That being said, farms are split between farms and ranches. Farms will be used to create all the food and herbs that will be used in alchemy and cooking. Ranches will be used to breed different types of mounts, but I'll go into the breeding process in a completely different video. You will, however, be able to spend money to upgrade your farm. This works similar to house upgrades, but offers different benefits. You see, while you're on a farm, the places by which you can put crops are limited to the number of spaces available. It's not like, say, Archage, where you just plop down a farm and then as many as you can fit into that square is how many you can have. You're instead given predetermined spaces which allow you to grow crops in them. At first, only a certain amount of the farm will be tilled for use, and you'll also be limited to the types of food that can be grown on the ground, unless you have a water farm, in which case the types of crops that are grown in the water. As you upgrade your farm, you'll be able to expand your farm into different things. You could keep it simple and just give yourself more spaces for land-based crops or water-based crops. Or you can branch out from there and specialize, making things like orchards or even a winery. I hope to have plenty of different options within the game, and this is important because a lot of these options are going to turn into tradable goods. You see, one of the options for upgrades to your farm is going to allow you to make crates. If you watched my trade video, you're going to know that crates are the primary means for transporting tradable goods. Thus, once your farm produces 100 of a specific good, you'll be able to turn it into a crate to then trade. This creates much higher profits than normal trading. While you may have to put on all the work and effort into making the trade good, you also get all the reward for doing so. Now back onto upgrading your farm, you will be able to upgrade your farm to make daily tasks more bearable. At the start, you are going to have to water and weed your plants every day. This can be a little cumbersome if you have other things to do. Thus, upgrades like magic crystals that water your farm automatically are going to make your life a lot easier. Also, having things like animated robots doing the weeding for you is also going to take quite a bit of time out of the effort. And maybe then that robot can also be programmed to put that stuff into crates once it's done and ready to harvest. That's just making everything easy for you. Now you might ask, well, if I get all these upgrades, what's the point of having a farm? I won't be farming anymore. And to that extent, you would be correct. You wouldn't be doing the tedium farming tasks that you normally would be. However, you will be getting all the rewards that you normally would be. That means more product, more trade goods, etc., etc. So now that I've talked about farms, I want to talk about upkeep. So in an MMO, you have to be a little bit realistic, and you can't make space for every single player that's going to be playing your game. There aren't enough plots inside and outside town to house every single player. And you also need to have a balance for something that can garner so much income for you. Otherwise, you would flood the market with goods and the economy would crash. Thus, every week, a player must pay essentially rent on their property. The weekly property tax won't just be based on the size of the plot, but what's in it. Thus, the more stuff you have on your plot, the more you're going to have to pay for every week. Now, this doesn't include furniture, which wouldn't make sense in the first place and would be a pain in the ass to program. It really only includes the major upgrades. Basically, the more you can make with the upgrades that you have, the more the upkeep becomes. That being said, even after the upkeep costs, you should be still making a decent amount of money, especially if you're taking the crates that you're making for long distance trading. You'll pay the first week's upkeep up front, and then every week after that you're going to have the option to pay it a week in advance. If you do not pay your upkeep by the deadline, you'll have 3 days to pay it afterwards. If you do not pay your upkeep by then, all your house upgrades will be sold and all the furniture will be placed in your family inventory. This is to free up room for the players who actually do want to have housing or farms. Now, if I've done my calculations correctly with the server sizes, etc., I don't think there will be too many players that won't be able to have the option of player housing. Just in my head, I'm thinking that each faction will probably have about 1,000 to 1,500 spots for player housing. And with the max server population being about 5,000 each faction, and that being a big stretch even then, I would go ahead and say that everybody's going to have a house that wants one. Anyways, I can't think of anything else to put into this video, so if you have any questions regarding player housing, just let me know in the comments down below. And I'm Will the Gamer, thanks for watching.